Do you ever wonder what your purpose is? You go to work every day, you take care of your family, but something still doesn't feel right. You feel like you should be doing more. Well, this week on Motivation and Confidence, we speak to Misty Sansom, who is a life purpose coach, and she could provide some tips on how to find your purpose. Stay tuned. All right, everybody worldwide, you're now tuned into Motivation and Confidence, where we help you do your daily best, and I'm your host, Tom Danger.
Episode 109, You Can Find Your Purpose.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Thank you.
So I'm based in New Zealand, as I mentioned, and from a very young age I've always had this sense that there was something that I was meant to do. And I remember being really young and kind of thinking, like, I didn't know what it was, and I would sort of think, I wonder what it's going to be. It was just this really, it was a sense of purpose without knowing what the purpose was. And as I got older and, sort of started moving out into the real world, I started exploring what I thought that it was. And like so many people that I work with, we all sort of go through the same process where we land on something and think, this is it. This is my purpose. This is what I'm meant to do. And so we kind of dive headfirst into this particular path. And then eventually we hit a point where we realize, it just doesn't quite feel right. And I know in my heart that this isn't it. And so sort of I would shift direction and think, I think that this is my purpose. This is what I'm meant to do. And I would go down this other path and it would sort of happen over and over. And that was really frustrating for me. And I know that's a really frustrating place for people to be in, because you're in a situation where you are so motivated and you're so driven. You have so much that you want to do and give. You just don't know where to channel it. And it's a really frustrating place to be in. And so this had sort of happened throughout my life in different careers and different paths that I'd gone down. And eventually I sort of got to a point where I thought, I need to focus on this completely. I need to just have this completely at the front of my mind and think about this every day. I need to really uncover exactly what it is. And I followed my intuition and let myself be drawn to things. Just that whole exploration of self-reflection and what am I here for? What do I like doing? What are my skills? What do I feel compelled to do? What have I done naturally throughout my life? That's something that I always direct people to as well. I feel like people, without being conscious of it, often when they are just letting themselves be driven through intuition, they end up living on purpose anyway. And it's sort of not until they unpick what that is and what that means that they realize, oh, right, this is it. That makes sense now. So for me, it was this long period of exploration. And then I remember one night I was lying in bed, and again, I was thinking about it, and it just kind of came to me like this sort of phrase of my purpose is to help others find theirs. And I remember this whole sense of complete physical like relief. It was like my whole body kind of just sighed like, yes, like finally, this is it. And it felt incredible for about 30 seconds. And then all of this kind of question came in, like, what does that even mean though? And, that's not a thing. And how am I meant to do that? And I was sort of wanting this tangible, my purpose is to be a lawyer, or my purpose is to be this kind of job or an occupation. So I tried to go back to the drawing board and think like, no, that sounds ridiculous. That can't be it. But you can't unknow what you know. And eventually I just, instead of trying to kind of fight against it and revisit what I thought it was, I just accepted it and looked at, right, this is my purpose. I know that completely. How do I bring it to life? Like, how do I make it a thing? So that's been my journey sort of up until this point, and this is what it's evolved into.
Okay, so what does or did your self-reflection process look like? Can you walk us down? Was it journaling? Was it going for walks? Was it meditation? What was the actual process? Was it prayer? Like, what was it exactly?
Yeah, it was I think it was, I tried a lot of different things. I would kind of explore any avenue that was under that kind of mindfulness reflection type umbrella. But the thing that really helped me personally was completely leaning into and following my intuition. So I would put myself into a situation that was very low risk, as in there was no reason not to follow my intuition. Sometimes we get these hits of intuition, but it's hard to follow because there's so much at stake. If we follow it, we might be losing out on a relationship. We might be turning down an opportunity. And in those situations, it can be really difficult to follow that intuitive nudge that you get. So I would put myself into situations where the risk was really low. So I kind of had no excuse not to follow my intuition. And I would connect with people, or it would be a certain book that I was drawn to, or even things like a movie that I just sort of, and something would come out of that. There would be a paragraph in a book, or there would be sort of a line in a movie, or a conversation that I'd had that just started to make everything click into place. And I ended up, once I kind of realized that this is what my purpose is, I went back and worked out what would have helped me, like what would have made it so much easier if I had known this, if I had known what questions to ask, what to look at, what I needed to know, what would have made this process so much faster and so much smoother. And what I uncovered was that I first needed to understand my personality. So my traits, my strengths, weaknesses, what I like to do, how I work, how I think, that was really helpful. I needed to understand how I like to feel on a daily basis. Like, how do I want my life to feel? How do I want to feel in life? I needed to be really clear on my, I call them themes, which are both tangible and intangible interests. So what are the interests that really drive me, that really motivate me and just inspire me on a daily basis? Like, what are the things that I've always been drawn to? I looked at my values, which is a huge part in how we bring our purpose to life. And those were the different aspects that pulled together my purpose. So that is the process that I take people through when I'm working with them. We look at what motivates them, what drives them. We really uncover what their values are, what they're interested in, how they like to feel, what their personality is. And from there, we start to build a picture of exactly what their purpose is.
Got you. So you are a life purpose coach.
Yes, life purpose coach. Yeah. So I absolutely love this process.
No problem. But within your calling, how did you come to the point of clarity to where it was a coach?
Oh, so that's really interesting. When I landed on what my purpose was, I was thinking about, how can I live this? How can I bring this to life? And I basically had to make a decision between, do I want to live a very sort of slow living, I'm very much into self-sufficiency and self-sustainability and living rurally and that kind of thing, like sort of somewhat off grid. And so I thought, that is a way that I could live, and I could still do the work that I'm here to do just by default, just by crossing paths with people, and you just sort of connect people and you're able to help them in some small way. You're able to help them do that. So I sort of thought that was one way that I could do it. Just naturally it would unfold throughout my life. Then the other way that I could have done it was to be more proactive about it and really share my message on a bigger scale and really work with as many people as I can. And so obviously this is the choice that's the choice that I chose. And it led into coaching because it's such a natural extension of helping people through that process. And there's so much that goes into purpose. Like, once you uncover what it is, then it gets into a stage of actually bringing it to life and what that looks like. And then that opens up to personal growth and development, to get, the confidence and to let go of all these limiting beliefs that you've been carrying, and to create a whole new way of thinking and a new approach. So it really just sort of lended itself to coaching.
Got you. So why do you think so many people are unclear on what their purpose is? Like, we go through life, we go through the motions, we work the 9 to 5, we take care of our families, we handle our responsibilities, and then one day we wake up and we just say, this isn't it.
And I mean, that's the society that we're raised in. That's what we're told is important. That's what we're sort of told is the be all and end all. And I think that there are so many misconceptions around what purpose is and what it isn't, and how you find it and how you live it. So I see this all the time. I see people sort of saying, purpose doesn't matter. It's too big. You just need to kind of focus on what you're doing, and that's fine. Or other people take the approach that, what you do for a living is your purpose. And it's so much bigger than that. So I always reassure people that, one, your purpose isn't a job or an occupation. Your job or occupation might be how you bring your purpose to life, but it's not the purpose itself. Your purpose also isn't your passions. Again, you can bring your purpose to life through your passions, but if you follow your passions rather than your purpose, you will end up doing what I had done for a long time, of going down that path of something that you feel really passionate about, but the aspect of purpose just isn't there. And I mean, I'm sure that you could think of, like, there's so many things that you're really interested in, you're really passionate about. It doesn't mean that it's your life calling, it doesn't mean that's your purpose. It's just things that you love, which is great, right, which is fine. But I think that we're sort of encouraged, we're told that, it's just your passions. If you find your passion, you're sorted. And that just isn't true. So people kind of hit a brick wall there. So what your purpose is, it's like your overarching theme for your life. It's what you feel compelled to do. It's something that you can do right now, today. You don't have to quit your day job. You don't have to, sort of run off into the sunset and make all these big life changes. It's something that you will be able to do right now. It's likely that it's something that you have already been doing, especially if you are a person that has a lot of space in your life to kind of lean into that intuition and that natural kind of flow and unfolding and connection. If you're a person whose life is very filled with work and being busy and sort of focusing on the 9 to 5, and it might be that you don't have space in your life at the moment where purpose has come in, but you can create that, absolutely. And yeah, I just always want to reassure people that it's something that everybody has. It's something that you can bring to life right now. It's usually to do with other people, or to do with other living beings, or to do with the environment, which totally makes sense, because if you take away everything material in life, like, what do we have left, right? We have each other, we have other living beings, and we have the environment that we're in. So it makes sense that our purpose is for one of those three things. And it's going to be something that you feel compelled to teach or share or inspire or do or make or create. It's going to be something that comes from you, and the way that you express it is sort of where it gets really unique and really personal and starts to look different for everybody.
Very cool. So walk us through the process of a person looking to work with you as a coach.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have just been through a mini Find Your Purpose course in the membership that I run. We did this over 4 weeks, and it was fantastic. And what I essentially did was just broke that process down into 4 weeks. So the first week we looked at those things that I mentioned. We did uncovered personality, which I love to use 16 personalities, which is a Myers-Briggs based indicator. I really like that one in particular because the criticism that the Myers-Briggs test gets is that it separates people into being extroverted or introverted, or feeling or thinking. But often it's more of a scale than a either or. And the 16 personalities one gives you a percentage. And that is really helpful because you can see that you might be on the cusp of, you might be right bang in the middle between introverted and extroverted, but slightly to the extroverted side. And that's just really interesting to know. Like, that gives you a lot of feedback and gives you a lot of insights just to see where you kind of fit within that scale. So that one is free. If anyone is wanting to jump on that, 16 personalities, totally free. You don't have to register to uncover what your personality profile is. So I always start people with that. We go through a series of reflection questions to think about the insights that they've gained from that, what their strengths might be, if there's anything that has kind of surprised them, if there's anything that they hadn't consciously thought about, but once they see it down in writing, they kind of click and like, that makes so much sense. This is why this has happened previously, or this is why I tend to do this. From there, we move on to how we like to feel, those really core feelings that you want to lead with in life. So whether that's feeling free or feeling valued or nurturing or care, whatever those are for you. And we look at those tangible and intangible themes. So your tangible themes can be anything from a passion for sport or surfing, or an intangible theme could be a passion for learning or just really connecting with people. That can be a really powerful intangible theme that a lot of people have. We look at your values, and this is something that I like to spend a lot of time on because it's not an exercise that people often do. I feel like a lot of people do explore personality types and go into those kind of exploration, but not many people sit down and uncover what their values are. And that's really interesting because it's interesting to identify if there is a disconnect between how you're living and what your values are. And once you're aware of that, it makes you realize why something in your life hasn't been feeling right, or something isn't sitting quite well with you. And most of the time, if there is a disconnect, it is to do with what people are doing for a day job, what people are doing for a living. So it might be that they uncover these certain values, but the company that they work for is in direct clash of those values, or perhaps it's the workplace environment that's in direct clash of those values. And that's really important. That's a really important sort of aspect of life to uncover and really think about. And from there you can kind of think, well, what changes can I make? How can I bring what I'm doing more in alignment with my values and what's important to me and how I want to live? We look at what motivates you. So within those tangible and intangible themes, we would look at why it is so important to you. Like, what exactly is it that really lights you up about it? So if you have an intangible theme of connecting with people, it's sort of, you would ask, like, what is it about that connection that is so important? Like, what is it exactly? How do you feel? What comes out of it? What do you get from it? What do you give in that situation as well? And that can apply to the tangible themes. So if you think about surfing, it's sort of like, it's easy to love surfing, but you can kind of think about what is it exactly. And it might be that it's being out away from people and sort of at peace and calm, and that sort of little bit of beautiful isolation. Or it might be that it's a feeling of being totally connected with nature and totally connected with this really powerful element. It could be that. So it will be different for everybody, but it's really interesting to uncover exactly what it is that drives us about those interests that we have. And then we would wrap those up in a personal statement, which is just a short paragraph to say, this is who I am, this is what I'm about, this is how I want to live, this is what is important to me. And I really love that part of the process because it's a lot of fun for people. It feels really empowering, and they can play around with different words and different structures of a sentence to land on something that just gives them, really lights a fire within them. So I find that part of the process a lot of fun. And from there, we would move into uncovering exactly what your purpose is. It's obviously a big week, a big part of the process. And then the final week, we go over brainstorming how you will bring your purpose to life. Like, what does that look like? So we look at what are the roles and responsibilities that you have in your life right now. So, are you single? Do you have a family? Do you have a mortgage? Are you able to, move anywhere? Sort of what's going on for you? Do you have a day job? Do you have a business? We look at the skills and experience and expertise that you already have, and also the ones that you want to develop. We look at your values and how you want to live. So if you have a really high value of freedom and wanting flexibility and to have that feeling of being able to do whatever it is you want to do at any time, that will impact how you bring your purpose to life. So you'll build that into what it is you do. So I find that's, in a way, that's the most important part of the whole process, because it's one thing to know your purpose, it's amazing, but you also have to bring it to life. If you have your purpose and you're not expressing it, even in the most simple way, it doesn't have to be, like I said, it doesn't have to be something that you drastically change your life for. It can be something that you just naturally do on a day-to-day basis.
Got you. So 2 questions for you. Have you ever had someone to take the assessment and then, based on the results, look at it and go, no, this doesn't make any sense. This is totally not me. And second of all, I noticed on your website that you describe that you can still have your purpose and keep your day job. So
yes.
I'm curious to hear about both of those. Because some people think that once I find my purpose, I'm supposed to drop everything and this is all that I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, and like run off into the sunset and everything's great. Yeah, absolutely. So the first part about people going through that personality test and saying, actually, no, this is definitely not me. Yes, absolutely. I've absolutely had that. And so the question that I always ask is, send me your profile, but also send me those percentages, because it's very likely, if it isn't fitting with you at all, it's very likely that you've got 1 or 2 traits where you're bang in the middle, and through this test it's put you on this side, but you're probably actually on the other side. So there's a beautiful woman, Chloe, who I was working with just recently, and she's right in the middle of these 2 quite different personalities. And when she had sort of sent through her first result and I could see those percentages, I sent her through the other profile and said, have a read through this and see if it fits. And she's going, oh my gosh, like, that's it. Yeah, that makes so much sense. And that's more me. So again, that's why I thoroughly recommend that 16 personalities, because it just gives you a much more in-depth, much more broader way. So I would definitely say, if you do that test and it doesn't resonate with you, have a look at those percentages, see if there are any that are really close to the middle, and then have a look at the equivalent profile of what it would be if it sort of just tipped over. And that's probably going to...
Because I actually took the assessment. So mine says that I'm a dreamer, and I am an INFP, and I'm in the 2%.
And did you find that resonated with you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's totally accurate. Totally. I can't tell about the introvert extrovert part, like the percentage. I guess I just have to go through it. But
do the 16 personalities test. I'll send you that link, and you'll probably also be an INFP through that. But it'll be really interesting where you kind of sit on that scale, I know for me, I'm very much in the middle of being introverted and extroverted, but slightly extroverted. So I come out as ENFP. Whereas on the intuitive sensing, I'm way on the intuitive scale. So it's just, it's interesting to see that breakdown. So definitely.
Very cool. So we're talking about not having to quit your day job, right? So
Yeah.
how do people take that, once you say like, okay, we've mapped this out, this is your purpose, but what's the strategy or plan going forward so that you can live with your purpose but still handle your bills, because the bills are still going to be there.
Yeah, exactly. And that's totally. And that is something that, again, I see often that really just kind of grates on me when people are sort of putting out this message that, you find your purpose and then you hand in your notice. Like, you quit your day job and you do the whole, yeah, which is,
I was this close.
yeah,
I was this close to doing that. I was like, you know what? No more. My boss said, "Are you okay? Do you need a therapist?"
yeah.
No, I just need some time off. And she's like, "Okay, just take as much time as you need." So yeah, I thought the same.
Perfect. And that's amazing to have a person like that that you're working with as well. And I mean, that is exactly it, that people have bills, people have kids, people have a mortgage, people have, for whatever reason, people, not everyone wants to own their own business. Not everyone wants to be self-employed. There's nothing wrong with being an employee at all. I feel like there's almost this message of gatekeeping, that if you do work a 9 to 5, you're not living your purpose and you can't ever find it. And it's just not true. So again, if we go back to what your purpose is, and it's that kind of much higher overarching theme of your life, it's that thing that you're really feel compelled to do. And often when people land on exactly what their purpose is, it sounds kind of vague. It sounds really big, which is exactly how it should sound. Sometimes it doesn't quite make sense to another person, which again is totally fine, because it's always going to mean something different to you than it is to somebody else. And the fact that it will be kind of quite vague is perfect, because there's no one way to bring your purpose to life. So again, for me, of having a purpose of my purpose is to help others find theirs. If I was in a position, and I absolutely have been, I mean, we all need jobs at different points in our lives. I can still bring my purpose to life outside of that easily, because it's something that I can just live and do on a normal day-to-day basis. Again, it's something that can come out when I connect with someone and we have this really intense, deep and meaningful conversation, and how I help comes through that. So I've had people, one woman that I worked with recently just had a very simple, beautiful purpose of bringing joy to people. And again, that's something that you can just do. It's something that you can just live your life by and sort of do on a daily basis. You don't have to quit your job and build a whole business around that. At the same time, I realized that, people often like to do that. They want to bring their purpose into the forefront of what they do. So there are two ways that you can do that. You can either align your career or your job with your purpose. So kind of just bring that into what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And this woman that I worked with was a great example of that, in that she was actually learning how to code, and she had a longer term goal of wanting to work for a company whose products or services bring joy to people. And that is just a beautiful way that she will be, she's completely living on purpose. It's coming through in what she's doing on a day-to-day basis. But, she's still paying the bills. She's still like living that normal life.
Question for you. In your experience, do you have clients, or even with yourself, to where you feel as if your passion and your purpose fight for attention?
Well, that's a really good question. And yeah, absolutely. Again, so many of the people that I work with have gone through that process of following passion, and not understanding what their purpose is. And so it just gets to this weird point where they've poured, sometimes years into a passion, and then it just isn't feeling right. It just doesn't feel like it's enough, or there still feels like something is missing. And that I know is a really frustrating place to be in. So what I would suggest for people to do is not necessarily throw that away, straight away, but to just take a moment to go back to uncovering exactly what your purpose is. Just kind of nail that down. And again, if you know where to look, and if you know what the questions to ask are, and you know what to reflect on, it's not a hard process. As I said, we did this in 4 weeks just recently through this mini course in the membership. I have an ebook that walks people through the exact process that I take people through, and it's pay what you can. So absolutely no issues about that. I want, if people are interested, I want them to be able to grab that. So it's not a process that needs to take a really long time if you have that bit of guidance. So once you uncover what your purpose is, then you can kind of go back to those passions, and you can go back to, okay, this is how my purpose is fitting into that, or this is why I'm so passionate about that. I can kind of understand how this is fitting into that bigger purpose. So I'm trying, just as an example, if you had a business where you were sort of similar to what you're doing, like very self-growth and motivation, personal development, you could, I'm sure that's something that you're incredibly passionate about, right? I'm sure that that's something, you're incredibly passionate about that. I'm also guessing that it fits in with your other passions. Like you probably are passionate about connecting with people, and probably about business as well, I would say, working for yourself. Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of passions that are coming through that, but your purpose will be bigger than that, and it will be kind of vague. It will, and this is just one way that you've chosen to bring it to life with all of those passions that you have. So I think with our passions, we don't have to, I mean, we're all passionate people. The people that will be listening to this now are going to be very likely multi-passionate people. And
absolutely.
And I really respect that completely. I think with multi-passionate people, though, we tend to get so excited about the potential of what we could do. And, and life feels short, and we want to do as much as we can with the time that we're here. And so it ends up in a situation where we kind of try and do everything, and it's hard to sort of just leave it. I can totally relate. And it's hard sometimes to just to sort of narrow down and kind of say, okay, if I want to be as effective as possible, what passions are going to lend itself to that? And what passions do I just need to love but leave as a hobby? And I think that's something that I always encourage people to be okay with as well. There's, especially right now in the whole kind of gig economy, it's so easy to start a business, which is amazing, but there's also so much pressure on people to turn their hobbies into a business, to monetize their passions, to sort of take what they love doing and then build it into something. But it's okay. It's okay not to do that. It's okay to just sort of hone in on those smaller handful of ones that will sustain you. So I'm the same. I love connecting with people. I love business. I love technology. I love creating. So I love all the parts that go with running your own business, especially online. You're always creating.
Did you do your own website?
Yes, I did.
Amazing job. Amazing job. It looks amazing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So specifically, what items are you passionate about? Because you've talked about your purpose and you've made your purpose abundantly clear, but what are you passionate about?
I am so passionate about small business. I'm incredibly passionate about that. So New Zealand has a really unique landscape in that 80% of businesses in New Zealand are small to medium businesses, which means that it's either, you know, owner operated, sort of less than 20 staff. And I think that small businesses in smaller communities are so important. It gives so much value to the wider community, because if you compare a great big, you know, multinational chain store company coming into a community, they tend to suck up all of these small individual businesses. You know, they tend to pay minimum wage. They tend to not have great opportunities. Whereas if you don't have that great big multinational corporate chain store company in there, and you have, you know, 10, 15 small independent stores that are the equivalent, you've got better wages, you've got money staying in the local community, you've got better opportunities circling around. It's just, it's a so much better for communities. So that's something that I'm incredibly passionate about, a small business. And I actually, at the start of this year, 5 weeks before lockdown, which isn't great timing, I opened a co-working space with a friend in our local community. Yeah, and again, it's sort of, she's the same. She's very passionate about small business, and we kind of just felt that our small community didn't have one. We both, you know, saw a need for one personally, and with our friends that we have here, and that's just been so beautiful to see all of these freelancers and startups and businesses growing under this one roof. So yeah, something I'm incredibly passionate about, and creating and all of those kind of things, which is like yourself with the business that you've created and what you're doing. It's sort of, you've got so many passions that fall under that umbrella, and that's really special. It's
right. But I enjoy listening to you speak about how you've managed to create this nice layer of your purpose and passion together, right? Because while you're still working on your purpose, I'm pretty sure there are small businesses that you work with, right? So you're still touching your passion. Am I correct? Or
absolutely. Yeah, okay. Absolutely. And I do I do love that process of if somebody, through uncovering what their purpose is and how they want to bring it to life, if they do decide that I do want to turn it into a business, or I do want to turn this into something bigger, I love that as well. And I love chatting with people about that process. Absolutely. And so it's, yeah, that is definitely a way that my passions can really kind of shine through that process. So I do feel really lucky when I get to work with people in that aspect.
Very cool. So in closing, if you could leave our listeners with 1 or 2 bits of information about how to go about looking for their passion, what would you say?
I would say take some time for self-reflection and think about, you know, write it down, think about it. Think about those different things throughout your life that you've felt really drawn to, that you feel really compelled to do. And it might be that it's something that you haven't done for years, you know, for 10 years more, because just life gets in the way sometimes. But go back to those things that you love doing that really, it physically resonates with you, where you feel completely in flow, where you feel really inspired and motivated, that kind of those things that you enjoy doing and you would just, you know, do all day, every day if you could. Like, just take some time to sit with that and think about that. Often it's things that we did when we were much younger and we had no responsibilities and no bills and, you know, all those kind of things. We had more time and space to explore those things. But yeah, go back to that time and that self-reflection.
Very cool. Now, if our listeners would like to reach out to you or work with you, they can just go to your website?
Yeah, absolutely. MistySansom.com. And again, if people are wanting to explore the idea of purpose and how to find it, grab the ebook. It's totally pay what you can. I would love people to explore that. If you want to do that in your own time and take your own time with it, perfect. And if you would like a little bit more guidance, we have the membership there as well.
Very cool. Misty, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for tuning into Motivation and Confidence, where we help you do your daily best. Like, subscribe, or leave a comment. Check us out on various platforms: Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, Overcast, Castbox, SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes, TuneIn, or Alexa Media.